Yesu, Yesu, fill us with your love, show us how to serve the neighbors we have from you.
Hi, this is Pastor Peg. Welcome back to Who's My Neighbor Sunday School. We've got a lot of fun stuff packed in today's video. Are you ready? Let's get started with our theme song, Yesu, Yesu.
Yesu, Yesu, fill us with your love, show us how to serve the neighbors we have from you. Kneels at the feet of his friends, silently washes their feet. Master who acts as a slave to them. Yesu,
I forgot to tell you something really important, and that's what our theme is for this month. Our theme is no fear. What is it?
No fear!
That's right. And our Bible verse tells us that because God loves us so much, we don't need to be afraid.
There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. 1 John 4:18.
Last week we heard the story of Angelique and her son, Frank. They're from Rwanda, and they were very poor. Angelique's husband, Frank's father, had died when Frank was only 2 years old. And Angelique has a disease called HIV, and so she's very sick. But she had a great desire for her son that he would be able to get an education. But because they didn't have any resources, she was very afraid. She was afraid that her son would never be able to get an education. But because of people like you and me, people who are members of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Rwanda, he received a scholarship for the school that he attended. And so all her fear was gone because the people of God, following God's desire for us, made sure that Frank got the help that he needed. This reminds us that even though there are scary things going on all around us, that God is always with us, and that God always loves us, and that God will never abandon us. And when we know that in our bones, then there is nothing that we need be afraid of.
Hey, good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to Sunday School Imagination Station. Now, today we're going to work on building communities block by block. So, have you guys ever worked with building blocks? Like maybe putting together Lincoln logs or something like that? So, we're going to build a community. So let's see, we could stack the bricks like this, and maybe like this, and maybe like this, oh no, like this, and just use any kind of building blocks that you might have. And so what I'm trying to do is to see how high can I get this. So I got kind of a good foundation, and then maybe I'll put some across the top. We'll see. Maybe some more. So I know some people like to build them really tall. And some people like to build them small so they stay stacked together. So we're just trying to build maybe a house or a building or a school or I don't know, a store, maybe your favorite place, and we'll see how that works. So see, it's kind of coming along. Doesn't have any doors and it doesn't have any windows. But what happens if we have like a bad storm or an earthquake or all kinds of things, and then what happens? It all comes crashing down. So that's kind of what our story is going to be about today. What would you do if you didn't have electricity for a week? How would you keep your food cold? How would your parents or caregivers cook? How would you see in the night? Now, I can tell you from personal experience that we had power out when we lived in Washington. We had it out quite often. And when we moved out into the country, one of the things that my husband and I decided to do is to make sure our new place was wired so that we could hook up a generator in case we went without power. And that happened a lot too. And we were blessed that the generator we had to start it up each time that we needed it, but it still was there and helped protect us from losing food in the refrigerator and freezer and having the lights on. But one thing we learned about having the generator is you're limited to the amount of power you can use. So I had to work with the circuit breaker and how many watts we had on the generator so that I could have the refrigerator on, but we couldn't use the stove. We could use our pellet stove for heat, but we couldn't use the furnace. And we couldn't use a hot water heater. So there was, even though you had electricity, you didn't have all the electricity that you kind of wanted. Electricity is just one of the many things we need for our daily lives. But it's an important thing. Electricity helps us to stay warm in the winter and cool in the summer. It helps us to store and cook our food, see in the dark, listen to music or watch television, and even flush our toilets. Yep, it does. But not all our neighbors have electricity all the time. Sometimes our neighbors can't afford to pay for their electricity, so their electricity might get turned off by the power company. Or they may have to pay for other things like food or medicine instead of paying for their electricity. Other times, powerful storms like tornadoes or hurricanes can make a community lose electricity. If the storm is really bad, it may take a while before the power comes back on. Now, can you imagine what it might be like to be hit with a severe storm and it damaged the electrical grid. Let's try the blocks again. So let's say that you only get 4 blocks. Only 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. How could we build a house with only 4 blocks? Well, we could stack them like this, and we could say, well, there, but you can't get into it. Or maybe put walls up, but no roof and no floor. Maybe we could put a floor, but no sides and no roof. I'm thinking, I don't know if I could build a house with just 4 blocks. That's a hard question. If you only had 4 blocks, I don't know. Let's see what our story tells us. Not having electricity can be a challenging experience. If a disaster like a hurricane has struck where people are, people will need electricity to clear the roads or to help people who are hurt. Even without a disaster, people need electricity for lots of other things. Our church helps people who don't have electricity in a lot of ways. If a disaster happens, Lutheran Disaster Response and its partners help the people. When hurricanes made the people of Puerto Rico lose electricity, Lutheran Disaster Response gave them solar-powered lanterns and generators. Generators make electricity so the people could run their refrigerators and the tools they needed to clean up after the hurricanes. If people can't afford electricity, other churches help them by giving them money to pay their electric bills, or by asking the government to help them through special programs that help families pay their electrical bills. Are you thinking, what were some of the things we need for electricity? Well, the lights. I was able to charge my camera so I could record this. The heat is on in my house. I appreciate that. And the food in my refrigerator is cold, and the food in my freezer is frozen. And I'm able to watch TV if I want to, and I can do laundry. I can wash and dry my clothes. So I guess I use a lot of electricity. What would you do if you didn't have electricity for a long time? Well, some people are actually building their places with off the grid, meaning they rely on solar power. And that may be a way to do it. But it's expensive and not everybody can do it. Why should we care about people who don't have electricity? Well, because we love our neighbors, because we care about people, and a lot of times people suffer when they don't have electricity. How can we help someone who has lost their electricity and can't afford it? Well, a lot of us donate to our churches, and there are some programs out there to help people. And last, back to those blocks. How can we ensure that the tower doesn't fall again? Well, the only way I can think of is if we just build on top of each stack. Now, of course, I'm using more than 4 blocks, but just to give you an idea, if we build our tower by just stacking I guess you would call it cross stacking back and forth until you use up all your bricks or all your wooden blocks. Then if it shakes, it doesn't go anywhere. So maybe that's a way that we could make ours not fall down. In conclusion, we and our neighbors have lots of needs. Some are small and some are pretty large, like electricity. These help us work to go to school and to enjoy our homes. God cares about our needs and calls us to help our neighbors meet theirs. Sometimes this means helping them when a storm comes. Other times it might mean helping people who don't have enough money to meet all of their needs. Our church does this in some pretty amazing ways, and when we do, we try to work with our neighbors to make sure that they are safer than they were before. So we try to make sure that their electricity is rebuilt so that they don't have to be afraid of another storm. Each of us is part of this work together as a church. God empowers us to do this work with our neighbors. So, boys and girls, what's the theme for today? No fear. And that's Bible verse 1 John chapter 4, verse 18a. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. Thanks, boys and girls. Have a blessed day. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Debbie. That gives us a lot to think about. So the next time you're playing with your blocks, you can think about this. Now let's sing our No Fear song. Be bold, be strong.
Be strong, for the Lord your God is with you. Be bold, be strong, for the Lord your God is with you. Do not be afraid, no, 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 no. Do not be dismayed, no, 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 no. Walk in faith and victory. Walk in faith and victory. For the Lord your God is with you. Be bold, be strong, for the Lord your God is with you. Be bold, be strong, for the Lord your God is with you. Do not be afraid, no, 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 no. Do not be dismayed, no, 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 no. Walk in faith and victory. Walk in faith and victory. Walk in faith and victory. For the Lord your God is with you.
Gosh, I feel stronger already, don't you? Well, that's everything for this week. But remember,
God loves us.
Don't forget, God loves us.
that's right. God loves us. So, no need to be afraid. See you next week.
Yesu, Yesu, fill us with your love. Show us how to serve the neighbors we have from you.